of the Tuscaloosa News and Tidesports.com. And our playlist this morning, Cecil, Athens, Georgia, a little Matthew Sweet there for you. Not an Athens sort of local, but he spent some time there, I guess, in the early 80s with his pal Michael Stipe of REM and others. And that was mid-90s Matthew Sweet right there, though.
Yeah, that girlfriend, I didn't know if the theme today was guitarist to begin with Q. Robert Quine, the late great Robert Quine, doing that guitar solo on top of Girlfriend. I'd listen to Robert Quine playing polka music. That's how great he was.
Or maybe preferably at the 40 watt, right?
Yeah, he played with Lou Reed and played with a lot of people. But shame that he's gone. But a great guitarist. And
where does Athens rate?
Album.
Athens is a music town for you, Cecil Hurt. Where does it rate?
They had a great college. They've got a good, still vibrant scene with the 40 watt and really encourage artists and have a great community. REM went global, and that certainly enhanced the reputation. But all kinds of bands out of Athens, B-52s, and we're famous in that. And then Pylon, and so Athens is a great town.
Our Drive-By Truckers playing their annual homecoming shows at the 40 watt coming up in a couple of months. Always look forward to that over there.
I can't let them go to Athens though. They're still a Muscle Shoals fan.
It pains me when they get introduced as from Athens, Georgia, Cecil. It doesn't match up, does it?
No, they're Highway 72, North Alabama brethren to me.
Whether Patterson likes it or not, that's right. Just the way it is. Hey, Cecil, I wanted to ask you. Obviously, we're talking Georgia, Alabama. The narrative, for this game this week compared to back in January. Obviously, the game in January was for everything. This game for a Southeastern Conference championship and for Georgia, everything. Are you buying into this talk? Or are you of the belief that Alabama, even in a situation involving a close loss, is still in really good shape to make that 4-team playoff when those announcements come out on Sunday morning?
We're going to have to let the games play out, see what the margin is, but say it's an overtime. Say we're back in overtime, and this time Georgia wins. Georgia's probably, we'll see what the ratings say tonight, but probably in actual terms, Georgia's probably the third best team in the country, behind Alabama and Clemson.
Agreed.
So if your loss is a 3-point overtime loss to the third best team in the country, and that's your only loss, Oklahoma will argue if they win Saturday that their loss was to Texas and that they avenged that or whatever. But who's their win? Who would be their best win? Ohio State would have a win over Michigan, but you've got that loss to Purdue, and that's a as I like to call them, Purdue that lost to Michigan. To Purdue that lost to Missouri. That's where that is. So much worse losses on the other team. Alabama's best win would be LSU probably in that scenario. Texas A&M, we'll see where they shake out, but I think LSU will still be top 12. So it'll be a tough call, but Alabama would certainly have a compelling argument. So wouldn't be an argument that would make three major conferences left out of the tournament very happy. But they would have, and really, and I'm just going to say this, people can throw rocks at me or whatever. Clemson's going to get in by winning the ACC, which is by far the worst conference.
Yeah.
By far. When you get down at the bottom of the ACC, Louisville, you look at even at teams that kind of went 500 because you're going to go 500 in the league. But Virginia Tech wasn't great this year. Duke struggled, Wake struggled. Not a great league. So Clemson ran through it, as they should. But Yeah, I would be. If I were the Big Ten, I would be upset. If I were the Big 12, I would be upset. I don't know if the Pac-12 left itself a leg to stand on. But it's an interesting hypothetical that I would be very happy not to have to deal with on Sunday.
And the selection committee would definitely love not to have to deal with that come Saturday night. They could sleep a lot better, actually get some sleep Saturday night. I think that would be an all-nighter for the selection committee if the scenario we just outlined came to fruition in Atlanta on Saturday afternoon. Hey, Cecil, I wanted to ask you about tonight. Are you going to be watching to see if there's some things that sort of tip the hand maybe of the selection committee, not so much directly related to Alabama's place because none of us expect that to change, but in terms of the scenario we just played out, the love for the league, I guess, and maybe some of Alabama's opponents. Do you think there'll be anything we can take from that tonight? Would you put a lot of trust into it, a lot of stock into it either?
I will have a fan interest in what they do with Ohio State and Oklahoma. I think, and I hate to see this, I think, there's a chaos situation that could benefit UCF, but now with the quarterback out, Mackenzie Milton, how do you put them in a game? They'd literally say Alabama won, and there's a big chaos, and they put Central Florida in at 4. The line on that game in Dallas would be 35, 36. Without their quarterback, be 35 points. I just don't see them making that match, whether they should or shouldn't. But I'll be interested to see where they put UCF and how they handle the quarterback injury, if they address it at all. But other than that, Clemson's virtually in, Notre Dame's in. And so I don't know that the rankings, unless you care, who's going to which New Year's Six bowl, I don't know that this kind of rankings is going to mean much more than any of the others until next week.
Talking with Cecil Hurt, the sports editor and columnist for the Tuscaloosa News and TideSports.com on a Tuesday edition of Southern Fried Sports presented by Carty and Lloyd, attorneys at law, and also Mercedes-Benz of Tuscaloosa. Looking at Alabama and Georgia going into this game on Saturday, Cecil, and we're alike in that we don't watch Georgia minute by minute, snap by snap on a weekly basis. But based on what you've been able to see of the Bulldogs and obviously everything that you've seen from Alabama, is there a major difference or two that sort of stands out to you going into this matchup as opposed to back in January when these teams got together?
Roquan Smith.
Yeah.
I think that's one. I think he was a force to be reckoned with at linebacker, and I don't know that they have a dynamic guy like that in their front seven this year. I think they're good. Kirby's recruited well. There's not a position where they're not athletic and big and top level SEC recruits. But Roquan Smith's a different deal. He's a game changer, and they miss him. I'm not sure. Great respect for Swift and Holyfield. I don't know that that's Tony Michel and Nick Chubb as far as a running back duo. But they're good. Like I said, I think they're the third best team in the country right now, even with the loss to LSU. So there are some differences. They're not as dynamic in the defensive front seven. They've had injuries on their offensive line, I think, and have had to kind of mix and match, which Alabama has as well. And I don't, as good as their running backs are, and they're good, I would still, if I were Nick Saban, I'd be glad not to see Tony Michel out there.
Yeah, dealing with a sort of mix and match offensive line for much of this season as well, have the Georgia Bulldogs on the offensive side of the ball. Hey, Cecil, if you had been covering that Texas A&M LSU game on Saturday night, how many words would Cecil Hurt have needed to get everything in from that 7 overtime affair? Not just during the game and overtime, but apparently after the game as well, right?
That was a whole separate issue, and I want to credit the photographers from the Texas papers and Baton Rouge Advocate. The pictures from the post game have been fantastic. You know, it's almost like you put together a collage and try to figure out what happened. And I certainly don't know. And you've seen melee situations like that before, Travis. You can't. It's impossible to sort out who slugged who when. You know, who started it, who said, you know, what's being said, who said anything. You know, a lot of people say Damian Craig started it. Some people say Cragthorpe ran over and got into it. But, you know, as far as writing it, you know, once the game hits overtime, you probably thought the game was won and you could sort of at least get started on the interception that was overruled for Mond's knee being down, which it was down. But in the overtimes, you just have to wait. You know, there's no sense in writing. You write some running play by play from the overtimes, but you're just stuck. Then you just have to wait and see what transpires. You know, I had overtime national championship game last year, so you basically sit and wait, and then go when it finishes and go as fast as you can.
In wrestling terms, would Jimbo's nephew be Shane O'Mac? He kind of struck me that way a little bit. Jimbo is Vince.
Jimmy Hart. Without the megaphone. He's going to take Jim Cornette, maybe.
The tennis racket?
Going to take some manager bumps, but when Kevin Falk bowed up, you know, he wasn't gonna.
He ran backstage.
Yeah, he wasn't gonna. He might hit him from behind with the tennis.
Was there a limo waiting for him backstage to haul him out of there? You know, squealing tires, heading to break?
Might have been. So you know that's again, and I don't know if he was trying to be the get back coach or you know what his provocation was, or whether he's got a regular role down there, or whether I'm not blaming anybody because there's just no way to sort it out. I'm not blaming the LSU side. I'm not blaming the A&M side. But yeah, he didn't come off. He came off.
The look on Jimbo's face, though. The look on Jimbo's face, Cecil, when the kid told him.
Excuse me. Yeah, he was a little over it. All of a sudden, the big men came in, and he was a little over his head.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, he seemed to be a little bit thrown for a loop when it actually turned to fisticuffs and went down on him. I don't think he was counting on that.
Got the Ole Miss quarterback Matt Corral off the hook anyway.
Oh gosh, what was that about on Thanksgiving night, Cecil?
That's rule 1, man. Keep that headgear on.
Yeah, he's got his Chad Kelly starter kit going. Matt Corral does, I think. I worry about Matt Corral a little bit after that. I worry about maybe some off-season news at some point after seeing that sort of display. Cecil, I wanted to ask you about this. Should have done it earlier. Terrell Lewis returning to the practice field yesterday. What, in your opinion, obviously we don't know the extent exactly of where he's at and all those things, but we did see him out there yesterday going through drills with the outside linebackers. What's a reasonable sort of mindset to take with Lewis being back in that mix yesterday?
Well, we'll talk to Nick tomorrow and sort of get an update, but there's no way he can be ready for this weekend, I don't think. The next game would be at the earliest be December 29th. That's another month. You know, so maybe, a lot to consider for him. But get out there and, you know, take off some rust and so forth. But I don't think anything that would be involved.
I would think if he played, it would be similar to when all those guys got back from Auburn last year. Remember that, obviously? A couple of three of them got back, and really none of the three were impactful guys coming back from what they were dealing with.
Right. It's just you'd like if he was 100%, you'd love to have him, but what percentage he will be a month from now, we're just going to have to monitor. I will say he's athletically speaking, now he's a bit of a freak, so perhaps things will be different. But again, you don't want to go out there. First priority is you don't want to go out there and risk anything about your season.
No, you do not. And Miller, Lewis, and Mack Wilson looked a lot better, a lot different against Clemson in the Sugar Bowl than when they tried to give it a go against Auburn in the final regular season game. So that month can make a huge difference, no doubt about it. Before we let you go,
month's a long time. Enjoyed the basketball last night too.
I was going to ask you about that before we let you go. My question for you is: John Morant the best basketball player that will play in Coleman Coliseum? I'm talking about Alabama's team opponents. Was a guy from the OVC the best that will step foot in that building this year?
I think in some ways it's possible. There'll be some good players coming in when Auburn comes in, when LSU comes in. Naz Reid is an entirely different situation. A big guy, he's a great player. I tell you what, he's athletic. He has a handle. He's not a great 3-point shooter, but to get past anybody, to get to the rim, to get where he wanted off the dribble, and then super athletic enough to make it happen. I mean, Iverson level athletic. That's. I'm not. He doesn't shoot it like Iverson. I'm not saying he's Iverson, but I'm saying as an athlete, Iverson's the best I've ever seen. And this guy, he's as far as just run, jump, hand-eye coordination, he was close. I mean, he had, everybody saw the dunk at the end. He had a tip where he came flying in there and reaches back with his left and tips it in. Is amazing. So, I think what Alabama hopes is that he averages 35 points a game and goes undefeated in the OVC from this point.
Guy had 38 points, didn't make a three.
Didn't make a three. That's all twos against big shot blocking guys. Alabama's tough around the rim. He's got Dejon at 6'5" on him for part of the time. He's got Herb at 6'7" on him for part of the time. Absolutely the first guy I've seen that could get past Herb consistently and get his shot. So, interesting game. Nice win for Alabama because I think Murray will win more games as they get into their conference.
Yeah, that was a very nice win for Avery Johnson's team last night. And we need to note Kyra Lewis, right? I mean, just a hellacious second half for the true freshman. And again, another situation where you wonder where they'd be without him.
Yeah, when they had to have a basket, he could make a basket. And thought he played well. Reese made a couple of big threes in the first half when they needed them. Still looking for some consistency out of Dante Hall. He had some blocked shots that were important, but Big's got to finish around the basket. They get it in there sometimes, and those guys have to finish. So, but a good win and tough game coming up against Central Florida.
Yeah, Central Florida came in here and got a W last year, so that should be a good one. Hey, Cecil, as always, appreciate you joining us, my friend, and look forward to doing it again next week to recap this SEC championship game and what lies ahead for the college football playoff. Thanks, Cecil.
Okay, Travis. Talk to you soon.